All right, hello everyone. I have a controversial, slightly chit chat, but before I get into it, let me preface this by saying this is something I've stated before, and I am reiterating it because I had an experience today at work that definitely reignited this, I guess, thought process I've had. So basically, one of my coworkers today made like a comment about, me liking Caucasian things, or being like, oh, I'm not surprised you like Caucasian things, because someone said something about, oh, I've never had chickpeas before. And I just said, oh yeah, I've had them, because I use them in like the salad that I make. Chickpeas are also the base of hummus, for anyone who does not know. But anyways, my coworker made a comment basically like, oh, well, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that you like Caucasian. And I was just like, oh, well, that's kind of rude, because essentially he was saying it like based off of the fact that I guess don't act black enough for him or whatever. And so it just irritated me. It's annoying. Like, that's a comment I've gotten a lot throughout my life, and this just goes down to the whole stigma I feel like that there is around basically like the stereotypes black people have surrounding them. How I've been called an Oreo, people tell me I talk white, I don't do this, I don't do that, and pretty much people always try to put me in a box, or tell me I'm not black enough, essentially, in some sort of way, because I don't act a certain way or don't talk a certain way. And I feel like it's a very ignorant comment that I've gotten from black people and white people. I feel like it's an ignorant comment regardless of who's saying it. I personally think, though, it's worse almost coming from a black person, because it's just like you're literally stereotyping your own race. And this is why I'm not super attached, I guess is the best way to say it, to the black community as a whole. And I'm not saying this in the sense of like I don't like the black community. It's just like I really feel like the black community kind of encompasses in sorts a type of group thing, but it also kind of strengthens a lot of stereotypes surrounding black people and blackness. And I feel like I don't like that, especially for me, because I have a very I guess diverse background. Like, I grew up in Texas, and when I was in Texas, like I grew up being like the only minority, essentially, like always being a minority in terms of like I wasn't around a lot of black people other than my family, of course. And like when I was growing up in Texas, it was a lot of Hispanics. I moved to Colorado, it was mostly white people. And then when me and my family moved to Georgia is when I was like, oh, there's actually more black people than just my family. So that pretty much led to me being like in a more diverse setting where I was around like other black people. And I moved to Georgia in 4th grade. But also, I have a black family. My family is black. So it's not like I've never been around black people. But essentially, me being told because I talk a certain way, or because it's really like I'm being told because I don't talk a certain way, or because I don't act a certain way, that essentially I'm not black, or that I want to be white. It's one of the most irritating things I feel like I get told. It's annoying, it's irritating, it's frustrating having people constantly try to, and it's just like you're trying to put me in a box because I don't match your personal stereotypes about what a black person is supposed to act or sound or talk like. And I've been told it too, like in drive-thrus. I ordered something and this girl was like, oh, I thought you was a white lady. It's just like the notion, the idea, and I feel like, and I hate to say it, sometimes seems like y'all associate whiteness with being educated almost, which I'm not trying to say that like that's what it actually means, but that's kind of where the stereotype is leading to, because I don't speak in slang, I don't talk, I don't know, I don't have like, and I feel like that's almost worse, the fact that you're associating whiteness with, you know, not using slang or just talking properly. I don't know. But anyways, if you heard my mother speak, you would understand why I speak the way I do. Like, I'm a product of my environment at the end of the day. I did grow up around a lot of white people. That does not mean that I'm white or want to be white. That's just what I grew up around. At the end of the day, I would prefer having a diverse friend group. I don't try to make my friend group only black people or only white people or whatever. I will be friends with anyone. I do not base my friendships or the people I surround myself with around race. Like, my best friends growing up was an Indian girl, was a white girl, was a Mexican girl. Like, I've never been like, oh, I can only, like, I need to make sure I'm surrounded by only black people or only this. And I feel like there's just so many annoying things. And I definitely think I grew up in like suburbs around a lot of white people, so I honestly can feel comfortable in any setting. I'm comfortable in a room full of black people. I went to a black church, mostly black people there. You know, it's not like I'm not uncomfortable being around black people. It's just annoying that there are some black people, because it's not all, and some white people that essentially will try to use these racial stereotypes to essentially tell me I'm not black enough, or I want to be white, or I talk white, or whatever. And that's the frustrating part. Anyways, back to why I do not feel any sort of huge pull to like the black community. Like, I'm not super into like black power, black whatever type thing. I feel like I do not create my identity around blackness or being black. I feel like that identity is something that is in a lot of ways was forced on me by other people. The world perceives me as black. People, obviously, it's just like, I feel like once I unlearned, or once I recognized race as a social construction, oh shoot, it stopped being meaningful to me, in the sense that I recognize race doesn't actually measure anything meaningful. And when I say that, people misunderstand it, because like I said, there's so many people whose like entire identity is based around their blackness. I don't base my entire identity around the fact that, or me being black, or me being a black woman. I do think there's like culturally things that black people experience, obviously, you know. If I really got into it, I'm sure people aren't gonna like it. Essentially, the black community is held together by a trauma bond of racism and the past of slavery, essentially. So what unites black people as a whole is the fact that black people were othered them because of their skin color, which created the group of African Americans to begin with. And then that trauma bond was further created through going through segregation and racism and all of those things. So the black community is, in a sense, held together by a trauma bond, which is also kind of toxic anyways, because without that trauma, a lot of black people realize, you know, what does every black person actually have in common? You know, black people come in all shades, all colors, right? And it's just like race, understanding that race is a social construction that doesn't exist on a biological, like, it's not a biological thing, race is socially, it exists socially, because at the end of the day, what we perceive as race is honestly just a skin tone, skin color, and even that gets argued about, right? We have the white passing black people and everything else, and some people will argue, well, they're not black because they're white passing, but they grew up in a black household. And it's just like everything surrounding race is very much subjective, because at the end of the day, race is socially constructed. We decide what race is and what race isn't. We decide the parameters surrounding it. It is not a biological thing, because you honestly can't measure skin tone. You can't. That's a perception. That's how someone perceives you, right? So obviously the world perceives me as a black woman. That is what I guess my phenotypical traits would tell you. But I feel like other than that, like when people try to add any more to it, like, oh, because you're black, that must mean you grew up in the hood or you had all of these things, you know, those other stereotypes that people try to attach to it, I feel like are never going to be true for every black person. Black people have more than one personality. There are black people in all different aspects of life, and it's annoying, I feel like, and frustrating for me, because all my life I pretty much have been told I don't meet these parameters of what a black person should be, what a black person should sound like, what a black person should act like. I don't fit in that norm. And I do think a lot of it has to do with I grew up around different populations, but I also grew up with a mother. Is this my turn? No, it's the next one. Oh, y'all, I almost forgot how to get to where I'm going. But it's just, like I said, it's been something that I've dealt with my whole life growing up. It's frustrating, it's irritating, it's annoying, and I feel like that's also one of the reasons why I don't like that notion of the notion of like blackness and being black enough, and you have to have whatever certain experience as a black person, because it's like, how can you can't put people in a box like that. Like, there are black people who have experiences that I've never experienced, right? And it's just like, that's the problem with the whole notion of race to begin with. Race is never going to cover all of the life experiences that individuals have based off of where they grew up, how they grew up, where they lived, whatever. Like, my skin tone doesn't mean I experience life or the world the same way everyone else does. And I feel like me saying that seems somewhat controversial, but it's really just the truth. Like, I don't have the same experiences as a lot of people in the world, and that's okay. Like, I'm not gonna change who I am or to try to like match someone else's stereotypes of what I should act like or how I should be as a black person. And that's the reason I'm just like, I get frustrated about it, because I don't fit into the box or this narrative that other people put black people into, and then I'm being judged based off of that person's stereotypes and ideas of how I'm supposed to act. But yeah, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, racism doesn't exist and racism isn't wrong. Like, obviously racism is wrong, no one should be racist, but I feel like there's racism within the black community as well, and it's just as much ignorance within the black community. Like I said, my identity honestly is not built around me being black. I feel like I don't create an identity around my blackness. It's not because I think there's anything wrong with being black or anything like that. I just think being black really means as much as you make it mean to you. I feel like, really, like I said, slavery created the the black community in a lot of sense, because, you know, black people were othered and forced into slavery based off of their skin tone, which created that trauma bond that is literally what connects the black community to begin with. Like, if it wasn't for slavery and racism, the black community probably wouldn't be like look at Africa. And I don't say this, I know Africa's a continent, but there's countries within Africa that are fighting each other, that do not like each other, both black, right? So it's like, you can't sit here and be like every black person just automatically has everything in common. I feel like you can even look at like African American versus, you know, African, like, you know, first generation, second generation Africans who immigrated here post-slavery. They have very different outlooks on life as well. I'm friends with a lot of I have a lot of African friends, actually. So it's just like they also have different experiences with race and racism and see things differently. So like I said, I really just don't like when people try to put me in a box, which I feel like is essentially what is happening when I'm being told, or people are perceiving me just being myself, talking how I normally talk, because I'm not gonna fake how I speak to please other people, right? Like, how do you think I'm supposed to talk? What do you think I'm supposed to act like? Like, that's really what it comes down to, is like, you're stereotyping me based off of your own ideas of what a black person is supposed to sound like, and then telling me, well, that means you must want to be white. I don't want to be white. I don't have a problem with being black. I grew up in a black family, whatever. It's just, I don't know. I really don't base my entire personality off of being black or like pro-black. Do I want to see people in the black community succeed? Of course. I feel like there's so many people, but I also feel like when you stop viewing the world through the lens of race, you realize we're all human beings. You know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, black people's problems matter more than any other people's problems, you know, if you think about it. And that's what the world is coming to. I feel like people become so pro-black, they actually become racist, which is what I feel like you see in the very extreme thinking pro-black groups online, where they're like, oh, black people first, everyone else second. And, you know, it's just like they're becoming the racist that they claim to hate in a lot of ways. So I see that happening personally, and that's all I'm going to say about that.